Hi and welcome back to another episode, and today the used car conveyor belt has brought us a Seat Ibiza. This little car's covered about 70 or 80,000 miles and is 11 years old. It's a direct part exchange into a main dealership. So in the comments section people have been asking me to be a little bit more in depth about how the engine bays are cleaned, so I'm going to be showing you how I do it today and how I go about protecting some of the electrics etc. when they're being washed. Nice wheels. Yeah, they're pretty grubby as well, so I'll show a bit of footage of those today being cleaned up. And on the rear of the car here we can see it's got a minor scrape and some touch-ins that are going to need to be done to improve the appearance of it, so I'll be showing a bit of that in depth as well. And on the inside the seats are pretty grubby in this one, so there's going to be a bit more footage showed of how I go about extracting that and how many times sometimes you have to go over a seat to actually get them to a really good standard as well. The driver's seat's got a tear in the base. Usually you'd have to be really careful when using any sort of hoover or extractor around that you'd be worried about increasing the tear in the seat. But in this instance the car's going straight to the trimmer afterwards, so we don't have to be too cautious around that than you usually would do. So looking into the engine bay, we've got an alternator down here we don't want to get too wet. It has a spark plug cover, so we haven't got to worry about that too much. At the back we've got the main ECU, which is very important not to get too wet, and below that's an ABS module which could be troublesome as well. So I've used a couple of microfibers here just to cover them up and protect them. You could also use something like an old carrier bag and wrap it around there, or if you're in the motor trade, maybe an old seat cover or something like the disposable ones which are plastic. That's usually quite effective as well. So we can see here I've got a large garden sprayer pre-filled with all-purpose cleaner, and it's mixed at a dilution ratio of about 8:1. So how I clean an engine bay is I let the all-purpose cleaner do all the work for you. So I'm very generous with it and I'll spray quite a lot around here. Leave it for a little while to sort of dwell and sort of bite into the dirt and loosen it up a bit. I'll then go over with a series of different brushes, big and small, to really sort of push the dirt off and give it a good scrub. Then I'll give it another light coat of APC just to bite into anything which is underneath that and to really make sure it's done its magic before introducing the jet wash. The idea is, as you can see as all the dirt starts to run down, the APC's done all the work for you. The idea is when I introduce the jet wash, its job's really just to remove the all-purpose cleaner and the remaining dirt which is left in the engine bay. Where things tend to go wrong with people cleaning engine bays is they get the jet wash and they stick it really close in there against all these small little electrical components and sensors. 120 psi at point blank range is going to cause problems. If you can do on some of these Karcher jet washes and other makes, just turn the pressure down a bit, or if you can't, a simple trick is just to hold it further back like you'll see, which I'm about to do, and it just really reduces the risk of actually getting water in parts of the small electrical stuff that you don't want to. And the brush I'm using here just to agitate around is just an old interior one that's had its day. It's gone a bit sort of bristled at the end really, and it's ideal for these sort of jobs like alloy wheels or an engine bay where it's still soft enough that it's not going to damage any of the metalwork underneath it. And as I move on to the underneath the bonnet, we can see I'm giving it another coat of APC, and it's interesting because we can see some of the dirt already running off, so in itself that garden spray is like a miniature jet wash. I've switched to a slightly larger brush here. It's by a company called Vican. It's very soft bristled, so it's not going to do any harm to this paintwork underneath the engine bay, but it's just going to get in there and really loosen up all the dirt prior to we start jet washing. And onto the fun bit with the jet wash. So we can see here, start from the top and work your way down. Pretty much like when you wash the outside of the car, but you can really see all the filth being blasted off now and leaving the nice shiny silver paintwork underneath. And as we go on to cleaning the engine bay, we can see what I mean by holding the lance quite far back. So the actual spray that's going into the engine bay is not point blank, it's dispersed quite a bit, but it's still got enough force to push the APC out and any remaining dirt out of the engine bay. It's really important when washing an engine bay that you stand at the side and look at the back of the radiator. How a lot of people miss this area where the electric fan is, and it tends to be covered in crud and people miss it. So I'm now going to remove all the microfibers and dress the engine bay. I'm going to be using a product by a company called Autoglym. They've been around in the UK for quite a long time. They do retail as well as trade. And this product, the public version is called Rubber and Vinyl Dressing. It's yellow. And if you're buying it in the trade version, it's called Super Sheen. What this product's going to do, as you can see as I'm being very generous with it, is going to coat everything. While it's all wet, it's going to cling to the water and just literally cover the metal, the rubber hoses, the black trim, and will leave the whole thing looking absolutely OE and natural at the end of it without looking too glossy and over the top. It's really, really good. Onto the wheels, and these weren't too bad. So I've coated these beforehand with some all-purpose cleaner, come back over and put a bit more in a sprayer as well. I'm using an easy detailing brush. There's other brands which make similar sort of things. This is going to get through the bigger spokes and to the back of the barrel of the wheel. I'm going to spray a little bit more all-purpose cleaner on here to keep it wet and lubricated. I'm then going to switch to two little different brushes, a small one which is a bit softer, and then something that's a little bit sort of stiffer, just to get in between the really fine spokes there, just to sort of agitate them and really get all the grime out. And then we can give it a good blast with the jet wash and remove it all and relieve a nice shiny alloy wheel. So a couple of episodes back I asked where people were in the world, and that was really interesting. There was people in Missouri, Brazil, Spain. It was quite interesting to know where everybody came from, and yeah, quite fascinating really. So the question of the day is, what do you currently drive and why? So into the comments section below. It doesn't matter, it could be a people carrier, pickup truck or sports car, whatever. Just kind of interested to see what everybody's daily driver is. And in case you're wondering what my delightful vehicle is, I'm currently driving a Volvo V50 estate car. I think if you watch some of the videos at the end bit, you can see my car in the background. It's a silver one. So it's a 2008. I think it's done about 105,000 miles now. I've had it for about 2 years. It's great. It's reliable. It's cheap to run and does whatever I need it to do, and I can throw all the junk in the boot. So yeah, it's good. I like it. You know, when I lifted this mat here and I saw this strategically placed chocolate bar wrapper, I thought to myself, is somebody in a diet and they've hidden that. So the three areas that I see missed the most when people have detailed a car for the trade, or in general really, is the petrol flap sort of surrounding inside that area there is always pretty manky. Number two is underneath the rear seats, and where the seats flip back and forwards if they do, they haven't done the side bit. And thirdly is a spare wheel well. I tend to get quite involved in taking the spare wheel out in the cars for two reasons. A, they're usually quite grubby, and secondly is to check for a water leak. When these cars get to 10, 11 years old, the rear light clusters are a real hot spot for the seals getting a bit weak, where the body's flexed over movement over the years and water can start trickling into there, pooling up, and it starts to stink. Or the door seal itself, whether it's a saloon or a hatchback, can get a bit weak, and if the water starts to trip in from there, it can again pool up in the boot. So now I'm going to start cleaning the plastics and the interior components of the car. I'm going to be using all-purpose cleaner here with a couple of damp microfibers in conjunction with the airline. So I'm going to spray the plastics with the all-purpose cleaner, use the brush to agitate it, and then wipe all the filth off with a damp microfiber cloth. The airline is going to be really good. It's going to do two things. It's going to dry the plastic slightly, and it's also going to get into all those really tight seams in between plastics and bits like around the gear stick here, and it's going to force any dirt that I can't get out with a brush or the all-purpose cleaner and get it all nice and clean in there. And the reason for the mask is basically high pressure air is quite loud, so I don't want to be deafened by it. Secondly, because it's going to atomise the APC a bit, the mask's air fed, so I'm not going to breathe any of that in. And secondly, it can flick up quite a lot, so I don't want it spraying into my face either. At the end of the day, when I take the thing off, I look at the visor, I know what would have gone on my face, and I'm glad I'm wearing it. So we can see here I'm rinsing out the microfibers in a nice bucket of clean water to keep them fresh. And I've also pulled the adjustment lever down this steering wheel so I can pull it out a bit further and up and down, because this is quite a hot spot for trapping a lot of dirt and filth behind there. And as we switch to the door card here, it's a bit of a close-up of how the process is done. So in previous videos, I've just shown one pass of the wet vac extracting the really, really dirty water. But I've had a few people say you should be using 2 hands on the extractor, or you should have done it a number of times. And totally agree, and you are right. And so what I've done this time around is I've left this footage in so that people can see exactly how many times you have to sometimes go over a seat and how involved it is. And for people like me who just love to see all the filth go up the end of the extractor, I've slowed that little bit of footage down so you can see how much filth's actually being drawn out of the seat as well. So I thoroughly pre-soak the seats before doing anything with them, and as you can see here, I'm using the drill brush with a very soft bristle brush on the end of it, just to help agitate and sort of get the APC pushed into the fabric so it's working its magic prior to going over with the extractor. And now we get to see all the filth and its glory coming out of the seat. Lovely. For me personally, I really enjoyed this particular angle of the wet vacuuming. To me, it just highlights how filthy these seats were, and it's quite nice to watch the seat change colour. Definitely gives you a bit of job satisfaction when you see all that goop coming out, and then the end result looks really, really good. And now for the bit everybody loves, the dirty water down the drain. So this car took about 20 litres of water through the extractor to get both the seats and the carpet in a condition that looks nearly new again. And we're on to the machine polishing section. So the idea of here is we're just going to brighten the paintwork, reduce any sort of minor scratches and marring on the surface, and just produce a nice glossy finish back to the car again. As luck would have it, silver is one of the most forgiving colours for hiding scratches and marks, and it's no coincidence that I drive a silver car, mainly because I haven't got time to clean it as well as I'd like, and it's just really easy made to maintain and look after it. So for this job I'm using a Roops Melee polisher. It's a dual action one, it oscillates as well as rotates. This reduces the chance of putting holograms into the paint which look awful. And I'm using a Roops yellow medium cutting pad in conjunction with Koshchemi H9 cut and polish compound. I've chosen this combination because we're on a budget here as always. This car's only worth about £3,000, so that's going to be around about 3,700 American dollars. So it's not possible to spend days and weeks on it. The idea is in a day and a half or a day sometimes, just to improve it as best we can so that when it's put up for resale it looks nice and presentable for the next person who's going to drive it. Something else that I've bought recently that I've been really impressed with is I've had a pair of anti-vibration gloves. The particular pair is called Impacto and they're made by an American company. I bought them over here in the UK from a company called Screwfix, so quite a large DIY sort of store, like Home Depot in America I presume. And if you're polishing for hours on end, I've really felt the difference with these because it just knocks the majority of the vibration out and makes using power tools a lot more pleasurable. So even if you just get a very cheap set, I definitely recommend it. If you're using power tools on a regular basis, it really does make a world of difference. And after I've machine polished this, you might have seen in the previous video, I'm quite a strong believer of a product called Colonite. It's a hard paste wax, and I've just gone over the whole car with that afterwards just to sort of seal in the work we've done and protect it. So the wheels we cleaned earlier, all I'm doing here is going over with a bit of spray polish to clean any dust and residue that might be on there and give it some sort of light protection. I'm then going to use a touching brush and do any sort of stone chips on the wheel and also the curbing around the edge of it as well. And once all that's done, I'm going to go over with a long life tyre dressing, it's a pretty good product this one. It lasts for probably about 3 weeks to a month, doesn't wash off too easily, so it's going to keep it looking nice on the forecourt for a good period of time. Now, as bad as this sounds, I'm going to be completely honest, and sometimes motor traders, when they're at the cheaper end of the market, they can't be bothered, and their attitude is, oh, it's a £3,000 car, it's 10 years old, what do they expect for the money? Now, the smarter ones will pay somebody like myself just to go around and tidy the car up, touching up things like the wheels and the bodywork, and getting it as best you can makes all the difference. Reason is because when somebody's coming out and looking at 2 or 3 cars, the problem is they've more than likely gone to the previous type of trader, looked at a car that's not been prepared very well, come and seen this one, and think, wow, that's been looked after. And at the very least, if a motor trader's gone to the effort of making the car look clean and presentable, they know the mechanical side of it's probably been done really well as well, and that they know that the aftercare service is going to be good. So with all the paintwork being touched up and polished and looking good, we can now take the car outside and have a look at it. So it's come up really well. The paintwork's got a nice deep shine to it now, and as we go down the side of the car we can see some decent reflection shots as well. So it's a big improvement than what we had before. If you haven't done so, please think about subscribing to the channel as well. I do these cars every day of the week, so there's going to be plenty of content on a regular basis, so it's well worth a sub. And as we go onto the close-up here of the rear bumper that we touched in just a short while ago, we can see it's made a massive difference. All the black marks have gone, and although it's not perfect, unless you look really closely, it's not obvious now. The same with the front bumper as well. The stone chips are gone. It just looks nice and sharp and ready for sale. There is a slight scratch on the bonnet, but it was too deep to polish or sand out, so I just left it well alone. We can see here the wheel's nice and clean and touched in, it looks really presentable, and inside the fuel cap here it's all nice and jet washed out and scrubbed and looks all like brand new. And here we can see the product I stuck on earlier when the engine bay was wet has dried and just left it looking really natural under here. I almost class it as like an OE finish. It's just really pleasant. It's not too garish and in your face and shiny like some dressings can be. It just leaves a nice satin finish and looks really natural. There's a tiny bit of dirt on top of the ECU there, but I'd rather have that than get it wet and cause some damage. So the inside of the car's come up really well. We can see here now the seats have dried, the fabrics looks really good, and all those stains and horrible messes gone. As mentioned before, this bit of damage on the driver's seat will be repaired. It will go after the trimmer and look like brand new afterwards. And interestingly enough, the passenger seat has the same sort of wear patch. I think there's obviously a little bit of metal frame underneath in that base that is obviously a bit of a design error and can obviously wear through over time. And we see here on the centre console how good the airline is. It's really left those plastics, all the awkward areas you'd sort of struggle to get the brush into. It's just pushed all the dirt out there and it looks absolutely brand new. And also the spare wheel at the back has all been reassembled, all the toolkit's been cleaned, the tyre, so it looks really nice in there for the next owner to have. And coming up next week, well, we've got 2 episodes, different things. We've got this little blue Z3 that's been sat around quite a while. So the roof, as we can see here, is really green and disgusting. It's got quite a lot of moss growing on it. Boot was full of straw and the inside's pretty in a bad state as well. So that's going to be one video. And something a bit different as well, we're going to do an engine bay cleaning compilation video. So I've got 3 videos. We've got a Golf GTI, it's done 140,000 miles. This Nissan Navara has done about 100. And I've also got a Kia Ceed that I think is done about 35,000. So I'm going to go through the process of cleaning them up and making them look sharp again. Any questions you've got, just ask in the comments section below. I try and answer all of them as best I can. And once again, thanks for watching the episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.